All right, guys, so we're gonna do a little bit of a different thing for the lesson 3 videos. Instead of making you go into the textbook, I'm gonna go ahead and give you everything you need for the lesson 3 stuff. You're gonna use the video and the textbook if you want to help you finish your lesson 3 notes. So let's start off. Lesson 3 is basically called the Constitution's sources, which means we're breaking down what caused and what influenced the Constitution to be the way that it is. The first thing to understand about that is that the people that wrote it respected England. They just fought a war with England. They had just gotten done basically committing what amounts to treason against England, but they didn't hate everything about England. They didn't like the way the government was being run. They particularly didn't like the way they were being treated in the government, but they respected England itself, and they respected a lot of the laws and a lot of the traditions that were coming out of England. So they're going to use that as a model for the way that they want to set up their new government. What's going to happen with that is they're going to look at certain documents and certain things in the history of England that are going to be a source of inspiration for them. A big part of it is the English Bill of Rights. So they're going to look and realize that England had instituted in 1689 the idea of a Bill of Rights that protected the rights of the citizens in England. It's basically going to get rid of a lot of the overarching power of the king and the government to just imprison somebody, to take away their stuff without due process, to basically do all the stuff that we think of as being a bad thing in a tyranny or a dictatorship. So it's actually going to change a lot of the way that people live in England. And a lot of people in America, even the founding fathers themselves, think that a Bill of Rights is going to be necessary in the Constitution. Eventually it is going to be necessary. For the Constitution to be ratified, they're going to have to agree to compromise on creating a Bill of Rights. But at the very beginning, when they write the Constitution itself, they're still arguing about it. So before the Constitution is approved, they're going to have to get a Bill of Rights. But they haven't decided for sure if they're going to have one or not at the time of the writing of it. So, two main guys that really influence the Constitution and the people that are writing the Constitution are John Locke and a guy named Montesquieu. So these guys are philosophers. They're people that sit around and try to figure out why things are the way they are, and they run through thought exercises to try to understand what the best plan of attack or what the best plan of action is going to be. And we know that they were influential to the founding fathers, the guys that are writing the Constitution. Well, one, because you can see it in their writing just from what they're talking about and how they phrase things, all the way to they wrote to each other about it. So they're actually talking to each other about what's going on in this video, sorry. So, sorry for that edit, but John Locke wrote a document called the Two Treatises on Civil Government. And basically what he's doing is he's writing this idea of a social contract. He's saying that the government's job, its only job, the only thing a government has to do is protect the rights of the people that it's in, that are in its government. The people that live there, the people that the government is supposed to be protecting are also supposed to agree to follow the laws of the government, because in theory, the government creates laws that protect the people. The people should follow those laws because that is protecting themselves in the nation, in the country that this government is in control of. So John Locke thinks that most people have 3 main rights. The first one is to life. You can't have anything else if you don't have the right to life. If someone can just take your life away from you at any time, everything else is kind of up in the air. So the government is supposed to protect your life. That is including war. So the government is supposed to keep other armies from coming in and taking your country over and killing you and taking your life or your family's lives. But it's also supposed to protect you from the government. The government is not supposed to be able to take your life for no reason. If the government is just cruelly taking away people's lives, then the government is no longer doing what it's supposed to do. And John Locke's going to have a very specific idea about what happens if the government starts failing. His second idea is liberty. You should have the freedom to live the life that you want to live. That basically, if you're not being given the freedom to while you're alive to do what you want to do, then you're living a half-life anyway. You don't have the options to live a fulfilling and good life because they're not letting you be what you want to be. They're not letting you do what you want to do. So you should have the right to liberty. You should have the right to freedom. And the government's job is not only to protect you from other people taking your freedom, but also to protect you from the government taking your freedom. So the government in this situation is supposed to protect you from itself. And the final one for Locke is property. So he says that property, the right to own things, is an essential part of human nature. That without owning the things that you want, without being able to work to buy land, or being able to own the house that you live in, or the animals that you're raising, if you can't own those things, they're owned by somebody else, say by the state, or by people, just wealthy people that own everything in your country, and you just kind of are renting this area from them. If that is the case, then you again don't have the right to your life and your liberty because somebody else controls everything about your life. You have no ownership over it. So, in short, Locke's theory is the pursuit of life, liberty, and property, which is incredibly close to what we read already, the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. So, what we're looking at is a direct influence from Locke on these founding fathers. And they're going to write this idea directly into the Constitution, and they write into the Declaration of Independence, which we've already studied. So when it comes down to just philosophers who influence the ideas of the revolution, the ideas of the new country, John Locke is pretty much top of the list. The other guy, Montesquieu, is a French philosopher. And what he's going to do is he's going to write a book called The Spirit of Laws. Now, Montesquieu isn't going to kind of talk about the idea of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness so much as he's going to talk about the idea of what could we do to make a government that doesn't exploit and take advantage of the people that it runs. And if you've ever heard the adage, power corrupts, then you're really thinking about the ideas that Montesquieu had. Montesquieu believed that ultimately, even the best government, if it doesn't have some kind of way to keep itself in check, is going to go bad. It doesn't matter if everybody in your government is just good-hearted, kind, nice people. Eventually, bad people are going to get in there, and they're going to start taking advantage, and they're going to start taking away from the people that they're supposed to be protecting. So, Montesquieu is going to come up with this idea of checks and balances. He's going to come up with this idea of different branches of government that all check each other. So, you've got one branch of government that maybe can make laws, but you have another branch of government that says if that law works, if it's legal or not. You've got a branch of government that makes decisions, but then you've got another branch of government that has to pay for those decisions. So, if you can't get multiple things on your side, then you're not going to be able to do whatever it is you're trying to do. And Montesquieu's goal here is to basically set up the idea that a government is not all powerful, particularly no one part of the government is all powerful. The entire government has to be working together, and it's way harder to corrupt a large group of people and make a lot of people do the same thing than it is to get one person with a lot of power to make some bad decisions and start doing things that are going to hurt the people around them. Now, Montesquieu and Locke are going to have a particular idea about what happens if a government doesn't do what it's supposed to, and that's going to have influenced the founding fathers already. And they both believe that if a government doesn't do what it has to, what it's supposed to do, you get rid of them. You get out. Overthrow them, leave, do whatever it is you have to do. But if a government's not doing what it should be, if it's not being responsible for the things it needs to be doing, it's not doing what it should, and you don't have any obligation to it. You don't have any responsibility to it. It has failed you, so you can now leave. And that's the idea behind that. So that's going to be your early influences on the Constitution. We're going to do another couple videos for the rest of lesson 3. But for now, out.